Hi, I'm Chris Felina with New Vision Asia. Today I want to talk about factories. We're going to talk all about them. I know everybody's goal is to go factory direct, because if you go factory direct, then obviously the cost should be the lowest, which in my other videos regarding sourcing companies and trading companies, that may not always be the case. So again, look at all your options, sourcing companies, trading companies, factories, the types of factories, before you make your final decision. But for factories today, let's look at the structure of them, how they charge, some of the pros, cons, dealing with them, and some of the things factories do that you may not be aware of, but that can have big impacts on your business. So first things to look at when picking out your factory is understand the industry that you're in. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're a hand-blown glass buyer or cast iron. The type of factory that's making your product is not going to be this ultra clean, high-tech operation where you'd be wearing the types of hair nets, foot sleeves, coat that you need to be protected in some sort of food packaging or electronics type. A glass maker or cast iron is most likely going to be a fairly dirty factory if you've never been to one, because how are they making these things? If it's cast iron, it's giant warehouses or buildings that may be covered, and it's just sand, pouring hot molten metal into sand. So it's going to be dirty, it's going to be hot. You need to look beyond what your initial thoughts are of the factory and look, are they producing a quality product? Do they have quality control procedures for that industry that make sense? They're not going to do that high-tech clean environment when there's sand in the air, or they're hand-blowing glass and they're cutting off pieces and it's breaking onto the ground, because that's the production process. Now, if you're in a high-tech plant looking for food-grade packaging and they're throwing things on the ground and there's dirt and crud in the air, you probably want to find a different factory, one that's going to have a quality control, have an environmental system that is related and works with the type of product you're producing. So, factory, just like trading company, you're going to be interacting with a merchandiser. You want to check on the merchandiser's English level, and this is especially true when you're using a factory that might be further into the countryside, not so close to the coast, because this merchandiser may have gone to a local school where they learned English, but if they don't have a lot of experience working with you and they didn't have native English speakers teaching them, they may have an English level that needs some improvement, and you don't want that, impacting your business, your communication with the factory. So check the merchandiser very carefully, because this is your direct link between you and the production line. All things flow through the merchandiser, so you want to make sure that communication is going to be clear. You may not ever meet the factory owner. You may always be, the farthest you go up is the merchandising manager or occasionally a production person. Now, you're doing millions and millions of dollars. The owner may take you to dinner, but you kind of work your way up that. That's especially true in the larger factories. If it's a smaller one, there's a better chance you'll get to meet the owner, which is, of course, critical in China of developing those relationships to get you those orders when you need them, get a rush order in. So try and find a way to meet them if you can't, or if the opportunity presents itself, be sure to take advantage of that. So in the factory, you're focusing with that merchandiser. Find out who the quality control person is, who may or may not speak English. So again, you're going to be going through that merchandiser if you didn't bring one of your own people that speaks Chinese, or you're not using a sourcing company or a trading company that has that English translation being done for you. So advantages of using factories. Well, they tend to have a lower price. You're not paying the trading company markup, and you're not adding in an extra fee for the source, to a sourcing agency. So you could get those cost benefits. And if you have your own team with the native speaker, so you're getting over some of those hurdles of communication or hurdles of the engineering staff because you can communicate with them, then it could be advantageous for you to work directly with that factory, especially if the factory has export licenses, which you should definitely check when you're doing your due diligence. The disadvantages could be, as I said, a communication issue. You may be a small little percentage of their business, therefore you're always being pushed off to the end for production, and they may not respond to you. We do work with one client that we are constantly calling the factory because they don't even want to reply because they feel the orders are too small. So we harass them to the point where then they know we're not going anywhere and they should reply. So again, if you have that with the factory, make sure they're going to be that squeaky wheel if you find that they are not finding that you're that important. Otherwise, perhaps you find another factory that does care about your business, something smaller that you can work with. You're working directly with the owner and growing together. So really the main, like I said, disadvantage would just be the communication side of it. Advantages are costs. Another disadvantage, if they don't have the export license, then they're going to need to find someone else. This is true if you're really in the hinterlands and it's a small operation. They're going to have to find that export person, or you will. Now, jumping around, if you're finding these people from a trade show and their factory, odds are they've already got the export licenses sorted out because they want to sell to you, or they're finding that they don't want to be beholden to trading companies anymore, so they're going out on it on their own. So as long as you've worked through that, the factory should be fine. Another disadvantage to using a factory and not having any sort of, like I said, protection, whether in-house people on your side or the trading company, sourcing agency is, factories will often subcontract out. If they find your orders not big enough or not profitable enough, they'll use a subcontractor. Now, I'm going to do a whole separate video on subcontractors, but to wrap up, keep an eye, I'll make it short here, keep an eye on your factory. If you find they used a subcontractor, you've got to make sure that they know that you're not going to accept that, because it should be, you want that all done in your main plant so you can watch out for it. So with that, cost advantages are definitely going to be there, but you're going to be the one hammering on price and service all through your own people. The disadvantages just could be the communication, and you're not protecting yourself if something goes wrong with that plant. Like my video on tooling that I'll put in the link below, you could have a whole bunch of challenges without that support layer. But just check out what's the most cost advantage for you based on your situation. And no matter if it's your first order or your 100th order, always get an independent inspection done. Thank you. Chris with New Vision Asia.